Hey everyone, Angelo here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering homeless guy. Just going for a walk, nowhere in particular, wanted to relax. These are the only times I feel like I can make videos, a lot of times. So not the only times. Because when I'm home, I want to be writing, reading. I just got a whole bunch of books. There's a thrift store I went to, not Goodwill. Goodwill didn't have any books I wanted, and they're all like $5. This other local one I went to, I was shocked. I didn't know how much they would cost. I picked up like 9 books. It was all I could fit in my backpack. They were $1 each, and a bunch of them were from Frederick Forsyth and Ken Follett. Forsyth wrote The Devil's Alternative, which I absolutely loved. It was amazing. And Ken Follett wrote Eye of the Needle, which was good. Didn't have the philosophical impact, because to me, not just to me, I think I'm objectively, scientifically accurate in saying there was not a philosophy behind the characters' actions. Yes, you had the British and Scottish and I forget if anyone else was there, but like trying to stop a German spy from unraveling the deception that the Allies were pulling off to try and convince the Germans that they were going to invade France in a different area from where in fact they actually were. But I didn't get any philosophy, any like belief system behind their actions. So you have this German spy, you have the British, Scottish, and it's like they're just all doing their thing. But it's very well plotted, tightly crafted. It just, like, I don't know anything about Percival Godlyman, but it was good. So, and also $1, I'm like, why not? I'll learn from all these. If I really don't like a book, I just will not finish it. I'll read something I think is kind of dull. I read A Long and Happy Life. I forget the guy's name. There are people who call it one of their favorite books. I can understand that. The language is good. It's just that there's like 6 things that happen in the book, because it's all just this flowery language and thoughts, and there's not much story. And by the end of the book, I was like, oh, come on. But it's like good language and all. Just, yeah. I need a story, please. Although, anyways, I want to talk about something I talk about a lot. Being car free. So how I went from having 3 cars throughout my life, kind of a 4th if you count driving my dad's Buick Park Avenue, I think it was, but that wasn't my car, it was his, to being car free in LA and loving it. My first car was a Mitsubishi Galant 95. I bought it from my boss at work. I had no idea what I was doing buying a car. I way overpaid. I paid $2,000. That was overpaying for this piece of junk. It was leaking so much oil. It was really fun to drive, but I had to fill up the oil every week on it. And I'm walking under an overpass now, the freeway. How ridiculous is this? Oh God, it smells in here. These freeways cutting through our cities, when they emit so much pollution, create all this noise, they divide cities, and nobody here, like, you might be like driving there to get off in this area, like to exit in this area, although probably some drivers are beaten off, like getting off in their cars, but it's for getting through an area. It's like, why do that through a neighborhood? Well, it's because we prioritize cars, and also it's a racist and classist city design. You can look it up. A website called Segregation by Design is just one such place of information you can go to see how many times it's communities of color that were flattened, demolished, so that freeways could be built and white people could then go to the suburbs to live and then drive to the city for work. Anyways, whole bunch of stuff about that. But I had that car, got rid of it, got overpaid for a 2005 Honda Civic, eventually went homeless, lived in that, moved to LA. The Honda Civic was destroyed while I was sleeping in it, parked on the side of the road. Then I got my Camry, 2000 Camry. That was crashed into and destroyed while it was parked on the side of the road. I was not sleeping in it at the time. And it was really hard to buy a used car by that point that was quality, that was affordable, from a private seller. So, sidewalk. It's hard to even tell the scale on camera of just how dramatic this awful state of disrepair is. Gotta climb up. If you have a wheelchair, this is basically impassable. If you need a walker or a cane, this may very well be impassable. Also here, this is almost impassable by one person. I don't even trust it. I don't know what's going to pop out of those bushes. But finding a used car from a private seller in a low price range was hard. And it was such a burden to own a car. And I felt foolish driving 3 miles to work with it. So I started taking the bus. I realized I love taking the bus. I don't like waiting for the bus. Mornings wasn't bad. It was afternoons. It would be quicker sometimes to just walk the 3 miles home. Take like an hour. And I could just walk the bus route. And there was a chance, like a 1 in 10 chance, that I would actually catch the bus at a bus stop on my walk home. But it was stressful. Car traffic, the volume of cars, the speed was so high. It was dangerous. I was so close to the road. Anyways, so I ended up just getting a bike and getting really into taking the metro, taking the bus, riding my bike. And I had already been learning about like urbanism, and I liked when I would see people challenging what I felt was convention, like that I bought into as well. Like there were many years of my life I refused to ever take the metro because I thought I just don't like the experience. And this is back in DC, where the metro is much more extensively built out, and it can be less stressful than riding it in LA. Although the metro is a lot more crowded there, I have found. Well, it depends where you're riding, but their Union Station, for instance, always packed from what I remember. Union Station in LA, no, it can be like a ghost town. But anyways, like I remember reading on Twitter someone saying like every parking lot is a failure of design. I thought that's really interesting. But here's the thing, I was so locked into thinking cars are how we get around. I thought, well, like I like being proven wrong and seeing that like, oh, what I maintained was not true. And I like that, discovering that. I try and prove myself wrong about things. But I didn't understand what the person meant exactly, because I was like, well, like, I didn't say anything to him. I just thought, yeah, but if there's no parking lot, how do you park there? Like, clearly there's some more creative way to park there. And that may be true with a garage, but I didn't realize what urbanism was. And it took a while, and I got involved somehow, and I started just seeing things challenged, like how I thought self-driving cars would make roads safe and get us out of traffic jams and crashes, to learning that public transportation was a much better way of getting people around, and trains would be. And I remember even saying that myself in 2019 to someone, and I was living in my car at the time, and I just thought, like, yeah, like what I was learning, I was hearing, I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. The problem they're saying of traffic, it's not going to be resolved by basically just more cars, like robo-taxis. Anyways, biking was joyous. I was losing weight. It's getting much healthier. I didn't realize, even though I exercised, I wasn't good at it. And I didn't realize how out of shape I was. And I didn't even realize how much weight I lost. I had lost probably, I don't know where I started, like 180 pounds maybe, because much of my adult life I've hovered around there. Now that's unthinkable to me to be around that weight. For reference, I weighed myself a few days ago. Last I was like 149 pounds. and I'm cutting to lose weight. I did eat a whole bag of figs from a farmer's market the other day. I was starved at night. Bad idea. Oh my goodness. I woke up with the wrath of God in my intestines, all that fiber. But I lost those cars. I learned to love transit, and then I saw how inadequate our transit infrastructure is. And again, all these years I had been learning somewhat about like how corrosive car-centric design is to our environments, how isolated we are, how we built everything for cars. Like when destinations are spread out far from each other and the city is far from the suburbs, and suburbs are all single-family homes, and you have utilities going out that are very expensive that the suburban tax revenues cannot pay for. Like they need to get tax revenues from the inner cities, which are the tax surplus areas. Anyways, it goes on, all the negative effects of this car infrastructure. And the thing is, I'm not against cars. Like, they're a fine way to get around, but we don't have options, really. That's the thing. Like, you should be able to have a car, I think, if you want to. A well-made car is a beautiful machine. It can be convenient and fun to drive. I personally don't like driving them anymore. Like, I did in a way, but like, it's just too much. I'm boycotting cars. I never want to drive one again. I don't think anyone should necessarily boycott cars. It's like up to you what you want to do. But we don't have options for people. So essentially, people are forced to drive cars because there's no other reliable way to get around. And we don't have to do that. And what do we get? Exactly the kind of cities and traffic deaths and air pollution and water quality and loneliness due to how far away we built everything, and everything's commodified, so we don't have courtyards and plazas and places where we can just meet and be without spending money. We have that situation where we have terrible traffic. Cars are very expensive to maintain. The car industry lobbies, they keep over-engineering cars so they can be expensive and release new models every year. We're destroying the environment, our health. Between around 30 to 40,000 people in a year in America die in traffic, and people just brush it off. Like, I see them like wave it away as, well, they're accidents. Is it an accident if you design a country like that? If you design streets that prioritize speed and cars over people? And it's not just randomly distributed where the deaths happen. The same corridors, the same intersections are consistently the deadliest places. There's a reason the Pacific Coast Highway has certain stretches that are much more deadly than a narrow, say, one-way street in any particular area, even if the traffic may be dense there. It's designed to prioritize speed. So in what sense is that an accident? These are all preventable, and it's by design. Like, if we had designed it deliberately so that streets would be this deadly, it wouldn't have made any difference, as opposed to if we did it sort of unintentionally. Like, we can expand our ability to understand, the effect of design. We can understand that, hey, other cities, other countries around the world don't have anywhere near the same amount of traffic deaths, and that's because they actually prioritized people and buses, trains, bikes, pedestrians, transit, more dense housing. So apartments, duplexes, triplexes, row housing. Not everywhere is like this, where you have these huge overdeveloped roads. They're expensive, they're usually under-maintained, and as a result, what's there here that people want to stop for? Not much. You got a fence and a parking lot. So we can change this, but people make the mistake and the error of not being able to be cognizant, or not being willing to be cognizant of this big picture and how it affects us day to day. And they just bring it down to themselves and say, well, I saw some drivers are just bad, or I drive fine, or I see bicyclists riding unsafely. It's like, what does that matter if you're never on the road with them because we have proper bike infrastructure? Or you're not on the road because you don't need to. If you don't want to drive, you don't have to. Because you have so much of what you need within walking distance, and you can safely bike, or you can take a bus that's reliable or a train that's reliable, frequent, clean, and gets to where you need to go. What would it matter? Most people will never take that step of thinking that far. And it takes wanting to prove yourself wrong and wanting to be open to like stepping out of your ordinary sensory experience and thinking like, yeah, what's the bigger picture? How were cities designed? That takes looking at history, and it's a matter of also then who do you choose to be? It's not like you automatically believe one thing or another. Once you learn some info, it's like, who do you want to be? Robert Moses, the guy who designed so many highways, and he's a virulent racist, he essentially, you could say, he knew how this works, and he wanted to destroy black and brown communities. He wanted to flatten their neighborhoods. He wanted to destroy their homes to build highways so that white people could leave the cities, move to the suburbs. You have the practice of redlining, where black people and people of color were restricted from buying homes, and their wealth was wiped out when their neighborhoods were destroyed, their houses were destroyed, and white people would move to the suburbs, these newly built subdivisions, and they could now afford to have cars and commute to the city and come home to their little private fiefdoms. And the problem is, you see that now and you just think, oh, that's just normal. See, black and brown people, they just don't want to, and then assert whatever crude racist crap that you think. Your eyes are telling you, look, like, their neighborhoods are poor. Why don't they make them richer? Like, why the fuck you don't you support ending this inequality, this inequity? Why don't you educate yourself? Like, you show how poor your mind is. God damn it. See, I'm waiting for this light so long to change. Screw it. I just wanted a little walk this morning to get out. So we could change those things. We could make for safe environments that are quicker to get around in. And okay, so I wanted to keep it also to myself. Why don't I get a car? One, why would I punish myself like that? It's so great getting around without one. For a while I was thinking maybe I'll get a very reasonable car, like a Prius, that long term could be helpful for me. I remember reading Ridley Scott said he has a Prius, and I was like, I want to do that like Ridley Scott. He's rich, he's a successful film director and producer. It's like he says he drives a Prius, like he lives simply. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good option. Or like a Nissan Leaf, like a reasonable electric car, even though I didn't have anywhere to charge it. And after a year, I just realized, no, I'm never getting a car again. I just don't want one. I'm saving so much on gas, on insurance, on maintenance. And so I never want to get an oil change again. I never want to deal with this stuff of having to schedule for going to a mechanic. What am I going to do when my car is not there? How do I get around? I'm so much more resilient now. I'm in such better shape. And I like that, the impact I'm having in that. If I just drive a car, or if I buy a car and then drive it, I'm one person enabling only one person to get around. Possibly more if I'm driving a friend or something, but that's it. I'm spending all this money, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of years, to get one person around, fundamentally. But what happens when I get on a train, when I pay the metro fare, when I advocate for transit or bike lanes? I'm not just getting one person around, I'm getting thousands and thousands of people around. I'm pushing and advocating for uplifting other people. So many people can barely afford their cars. So many people should not be driving because they're not safe drivers. It's amazing how we disconnect ourselves from people that sort of look like us, meaning if we're a driver, other drivers are not necessarily the issue. They can be, but here's the thing. Other drivers are you. You're the other driver to everybody else. Everyone watching this is someone else's other driver, is everyone else's other driver. So many people I see driving, like when I'm out and I see them stopped at a red light and I see a gap of like 30 feet between cars, I'm like, that's not about safety. Like if someone hits you from the rear and you're worried about rear-ending car in front of you, that's just you being thoughtless or being on your phone and not looking, and that's blocking traffic behind you. Whereas if somebody on a bike is in front of me, if 100 people are on bikes or in front of me, what difference does that make? Usually none. And even if I'm waiting with them, it's joyous. Like, we're not in competition with each other. At least I don't feel that way. Like, I feel in communion with other cyclists. It's good to see people out. We all have the same concerns about our safety. I think it's safe to assume that we don't want to be knocked down. We don't want to hurt someone else. We're seeing each other's faces. It pays a little bit more to be polite and respectful. And I enjoy yielding to like pedestrians just walking through the road, as opposed to when you're in a car, it can make you more antisocial. There are people who, you know, slow down, stop and let people cross wherever. But I'm like, I always, if I get frustrated at all with that, I'm like, check yourself, Angelo. Why shouldn't they be able to have the road? You're on the road. Why shouldn't it be a place where people are safe to walk? People just have this ingrained mentality of what they're used to, what their environment tells them. Is that, oh, cars are meant for the road. Only roads are meant for cars. Well, isn't that embarrassing to confess that you just go by what you see, as if what you see hasn't been shaped by people who want you to think that? Jackasses like Robert Moses, who designed streets and highways that destroyed so many communities. And then that's just normal to us. It's normal that freeways cut through our neighborhoods here in LA. That in the neighborhood of Sugar Hill, not far from here, it was a wealthy black neighborhood. It was largely destroyed to pave a freeway. Yet, why don't people want to grapple with this? Like, if you're for freeways and car-centric infrastructure, speak up and say, like, yeah, I'm for it, but this was bad, this was wrong. Like, I'm for good car design. And the big, like, impetus for me in many ways of not wanting a car, even if I did like it at all and had tons of money, all that money I spend on a car, like a reasonable car like this Prius here, that could go towards advocating for safer streets. That could prevent people's deaths. In 2022, 42,000 people died in car crashes. That's not an accident when we are consistently outpacing much, if not all of the world, I don't know, but much of the world in car deaths, especially car deaths per capita. When our streets are designed more for speed and for cars than in other parts of the world. And where our cities are designed so that you live in one place and you work in another, so you're isolated. And how much loneliness, how much tribalism and racism and antisocial behavior arises from this alienation. It's horrible. So if I get a car, I'm just one person helping one person, me, get around. If I put that money towards anything else, but if I bike, if I spend money on Metro passes, although I believe Metro should be free, what am I doing? Each time I'm giving a little data point that says it's worth it for this city and this country to invest in public transportation and bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure. I'm one little data point that I'm consistently adding. Now I also do other stuff. I donate to groups like Streets for All and to candidates who are advocating for these things I'm talking about. I send comments to to city and state officials to advocate for safe streets, for more complete streets, meaning streets that offer bus infrastructure or metro or bike infrastructure, wider sidewalks. I heard someone say this, and I agree with it. Sidewalks should be wide enough so that two wheelchair users can pass each other on them. I think that's a great standard, and that just seems unusual because we're not used to seeing that. Sidewalks are relatively narrow for the most part, but that's absolutely an issue of equity. And why should people in wheelchairs feel trapped in their homes? This is so egregious. We could stop this. And there's so many bad health outcomes as a result of all the effects of traffic. Higher asthma rates, cardiovascular disease, cancer because of the air pollution, the pollution that gets in our water, like the microplastics, the particulates that come off car tires, which is even worse with electric vehicles since they're heavier, and those tires release more of those microplastics. They get into our water supply. They get into the ground. Then we have the issues of lack of exercise, the stress that comes with this, the poor nutrition, the complete mixed up priorities. Wow, that was a weird pronunciation. Priorities of how we address health issues and early deaths. In Los Angeles, car deaths were the #1 killer of kids last year, 2023. Not gun deaths, not whatever other accidental drownings or whatever other accidental deaths. It was car deaths. That's not an accident. Accidents only look like accidents in very close, in a microcosm, very close view. This person was driving too fast, turned a corner too quick, the kid didn't check both ways, whatever. It's not an accident when we design cities like this. Oh crap, where did I just walk through? That part's not an accident. The fact that kids don't have safe streets in the first place that they can walk through, that the streets aren't narrow enough, aren't designed to actually get more cars through if they're designed properly. We can get rid of a lot of street lights and introduce roundabouts so there's a steady flow of cars instead of cars having to stop for red lights. We can build communities where you have lots of options for things to do in your neighborhood. You have stores, schools, community centers, whatever else in your neighborhood, as opposed to living one place and then going somewhere far away for school. We can have proper metro funding, so we have good wages for metro workers, for bus drivers. We can hire enough of them. But we collectively, you, me, ordinary people, need to advocate for that. And that includes car drivers. Why? Why should you want to do that? Well, you'll be getting lots of people around who no longer need to be in cars. People who would be looking down at their phones, who can now afford to look down at their phones if they're on the bus or the metro. People who drive too fast, drive too slow. People who are aggressive when they drive. All those people could be getting off the road so that people who actually want to drive would be driving. How much better is that for drivers? It's great. But see, most drivers probably will never step that far outside of themselves to think about what are the implications of our infrastructure and how can driving be more pleasant. We only think in what we see. I saw someone the other day biking and they were slowing down traffic. You're the traffic, you're slowing everybody down. One car has the ability to shut down traffic for miles. If they crash, if they get angry with someone, get in a fight on the road. Cars are these horrible force multipliers, like guns in a way. What are guns? Force multipliers. And the effect can be intoxicating for people who all of a sudden feel invulnerable in them and would honk at people they shouldn't honk at. And then for people who, oh God, it stinks here, want to prove something, want to fight, want to crash into someone. Does anybody really think about this stuff? People do, and a lot of drivers do too. Like, I see it in the comments where drivers say, yeah, like, I love driving, but we should have better infrastructure that allows for people to get around without having to drive. And who do you confess you are? Who do you profess to be? Are you someone that doesn't care that 42,000 Americans a year die, presumably mostly Americans? And I say that kind of like to appeal to the cheap seats, the people who don't give a damn about non-Americans. Every life is just as worthy as an American's. Everybody's life is just as precious. But it's kind of an easy way to, like, get people thinking about their own values when that's what they think about is American lives. So look up organizations in your area and just see what they talk about. Or just look up videos on urbanism. There are tons and tons of channels. I forget the names of most of them. Not Just Bikes, maybe the most popular one. There's Climate and Transit, Oh the Urbanity, City Beautiful, City Nerd. There's so many other, LEJ here in Los Angeles, Nimesh in Los Angeles. There are so many like local ones, and I follow ones, Iringo Urbanism, I think that's the name, in like Oklahoma. There are ones all over the country, all over the world, that are so great. And a lot of them only, Flurf Design, Flurf Design, Studio Leonardo. That's a woman who lives out in Spain, and she's been doing a lot of collaborations with Strong Towns. Strong Towns is an organization that's like nationwide in America. But there are lots of videos. Just look up, just see what you find. Don't think anything. Don't agree. Don't commit to like agree to anything I say. Just see what people discuss and see how you reflect on that. Why not? Everyone would benefit from learning, and I know what it's like to be more or less a car person. I used to watch Scotty Kilmer a lot. That did help me greatly in purchasing my Toyota Camry, so I knew what to check for, get it checked to the mechanic, test drive, all that, what I should be looking for in the test drive. Fortunately, the car was basically in perfect shape. Got it from a guy who sold it to me at a very good price, and he was a mechanic who as the other mechanic I brought it to confirmed, he's like, yeah, it's in perfect condition. And how much do people overpay? Look at what the car industry charges. Look how banks work when they're making us broke and in debt for these cars that we largely have to store here on the street. How hostile this is to people, to just having people-friendly streets. And why, when you go to vacation resorts, places like Disneyland, it's desirable to have these car-free streets, people-friendly streets. You can get around on their own transit system, ferries and monorail. College campuses. Why is it so nice to be able to have walkable communities? And what does that mean? Don't think anything. Like, don't change your mind and anything. Don't change your whole worldview all at once. Just get some information. If you're like me and you want to know things, like, it's never that I know everything, I know what's right, but I'm always evolving and changing and seeing, oh, this is really good. Let's keep going, and I'll keep learning. A little car like that, that's great. Why are cars so big now? Like that truck over there. We have small cars like this, which are economical. Well, the car industry profits a lot more from bigger vehicles. And now I'm crossing a street where there's no safe crossing for like hundreds of yards in each direction. I just have to, and it's hard to see around the cars here. You can not see the light on all the way down there somewhere, and then the light way down there. Those are the only two like actual crosswalks on here, and there's nothing, as far as I can tell, slows cars down on the street. And then you have cars parked all up and down the street, so it's hard to see around corners, and it's especially hard for drivers to see around corners. That Toyota Tundra was going rather quickly, but see what happens when you don't have architecture to slow people down. Narrow streets, chicanes, curving roads. Well, drivers drive at the speed they feel the architecture of the street allows for them. So if they see an open road, they tend to drive faster, and that means less reaction time. That means more deadly crashes. Look at just car. You can't even see the street here. Cars are bumper to bumper. Is this a neighborhood where cars live or people? Anyways, I'm all talked out. I gotta get to writing, and I'm going rollerblading today. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think could be done to make streets safer, and how much your neighborhood could improve with more people-friendly design. And if you didn't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on vehicles like these. I appreciate the older ones here. You got this old van, but like, it's not to hate anyone for buying a newer car. Just like, is this really necessary? Also, is it like the most reliable vehicle? So let me know what you think, and what can be done to bring 42,000 deaths in vehicles a year down to 0. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.